Is Heico a buy or a sell? Let's get started with the model. This is a large cap company, 28 billion market cap. They're trading at $2.38 a share, and they have 120 million shares outstanding. Heico is an aerospace and electronics company. It manufactures products found in aircraft, spacecraft, defense equipment, medical equipment, and telecommunication systems. Incorporated in 1957, headquartered in Hollywood, Florida. Let's look at their financials. The way you value a company is you estimate the free cash flows into the future, and then you discount those numbers back to today's value. That's what we're doing in this video. And free cash flow is cash flow from operations minus capital expenditures. From 2021 to 2023, it's around 400 million. Then they're up to 558 million in trailing 12 months. But their margins are lower. They're down to 15%. It was as high as 22% in 2021. So that means they're converting less of their revenue into free cash flow. Net income is a profit or loss on the income statement. It's revenue minus expenses. And that goes up each year from 300 million to almost 500 million. The reason margins are going down is because their revenue is going up. Revenue is a sales for the company, and that doubles from 1.9 billion to 3.8 billion. A nice steady growth year after year. And they pay a really small dividend. The only company who pays a small dividend is Nvidia. They pay 0.08% or 8 basis points. And they can cover that dividend 24 times with their free cash flow. We estimated 4 years of future free cash flows. We also estimated a terminal value, which is all cash flows past year 4, that's 28 billion. We discounted those numbers back to today using weighted average cost of capital. We got a value of the company of $25 billion. We divide that by 120 million shares. And we get a calculated stock price at 207. They're trading at 238, so they're trading at a 15% premium. It's a sell according to the model. Do you think it's a buy or sell? Let me know in the comments. There are 70 companies in the same industry as Heico, and if they have a number in red, they're worse than the median. If they have a number in blue, they're better. They don't spend much on CapEx, only 57 million. Pretty surprising because they're a manufacturing company. You would expect them to spend more. Their debt to equity ratio is better than the median at 0.6. They pay a really small dividend, 0.1%. Of course, the smallest on this list, the smallest amongst the companies that pay a dividend. Look at TransDigm, nearly 9%. They don't generate that much free cash flow, 558 million. They rank 11th in market cap at 28.5 billion, double Textron. They're trading at 9 times book value, 60 times earnings, 51 times free cash flow, and 8 times revenue. Really inflated numbers. They seem really overvalued according to their price multiples. They generate under 4 billion of revenue, a lot lower than the average. Their 5-year annual revenue growth rate looks good at 14%. Exxon is number 1 at 33%. Look at GE, they're declining, negative 9%. The stock is currently trading between its 52-week low and 52-week high, although closer to the high. Only 40 points away from the high, 68 points away from the low. Look how well the stock has done the past 10 years. If you put $10,000 into this company 10 years ago and reinvested the dividends, you'd have $80,000 today, a 23% annual return. I think the main reason people are buying the stock is they think it's Geico, not Heico. And they just rolled with it. They forgot to sell it after they bought it. To summarize, I have them trading at a 15% premium, ranking 6 out of 10. Would I buy it? I think it's a good stock. Short term, 7 out of 10. Long term, 8 out of 10. It doesn't seem that overvalued right now. Decent short term buy, but I think it's really good as a long term play. The ratios aren't so great, 2 out of 10. Financials look good, 7 out of 10. Revenue has doubled since 2021. Free cash flow up 37% since 2021. Let's take a look at their income statement. Here's their 10K. This is for 2022, 2023, and 2024. Revenue goes up a lot each year from 2.2 billion to 2.9 billion to 3.9 billion. Pretty big jumps. Let's see if they give a breakdown of the revenue. Of the 3.9 billion of revenue, 2.6 billion is Flight Support Group, 1.3 billion Electronics Technologies Group. Of the 2.6 billion of Flight Support Group, 1.7 billion is aftermarket replacement parts. That may mean a few months or a few years after a company uses the planes, they replace some of the parts. That's their biggest revenue segment. 600 million of repair and overhaul parts and services. So this is maintenance. And 400 million of specialty products. And that's footnoted number 3. That includes a sale of thermal insulation blankets, renewable/reusable insulation systems, advanced niche components, complex composite assemblies, expanded foil mesh, brazing, fabricating and welding services, also emergency descent devices, and personnel and cargo parachute products. Sounds pretty important, right? Of the $1.3 billion electronics, $1 billion is electronic component parts, mainly for defense, space, and aerospace equipment. $250 million are components for equipment in various other industries. That's footnote number 5. This includes electromagnetic and radio frequency interference shielding, high voltage interconnection devices, high voltage advanced power electronics, harsh environment connectivity products, custom molded cable assemblies, silicone material for a variety of demanding applications, and rugged small form factor embedded computing solutions. Also high performance test sockets and adapters. I don't really know what half that stuff is. Of the $3.9 billion of revenue, $2.4 billion is in the US, $1.4 billion in other countries. You don't usually see it written like this, United States of America. Maybe you do, I just never noticed it of. It's usually United States or USA or US. Below the $3.9 billion of revenue is cost of revenue, $2.3 billion. These are the direct expenses in order to generate the $3.9 billion. Then you have SG&A, $700 million. Operating costs, $3 billion. Operating income, $820 million. Let's look at their margins. Their gross profit margin is 39%, same as last year. Gross profit is revenue minus cost of revenue, so about $1.5 billion. $1.5 billion over the $3.9 billion of revenue. So they convert about 39% of their revenue to gross profit. Here's the 39%. The other 61% are expenses, the cost of revenue. Let's look at their operating margin. $800 million over $3.9 billion. Operating income is 21%. So they convert 21% of their revenue, 21% of $3.9 billion is $800 million, into operating profit. The other 79% are expenses. So 79% of $3.9 billion is $3 billion, which is cost of sales plus SG&A. They give a breakdown by segment. Of the $3.9 billion, $2.6 billion is in the flight support group. We looked at the breakdown earlier, and $1.3 billion is electronic technologies group. The operating income for each group, $600 million for flight support group. So of the $2.6 billion of revenue, $600 million is profit. Electronic Technologies Group, $288 million. Of the $1.3 billion of revenue, $288 million is profit. So their operating income is $824 million, which matches this number. It's just a different breakdown between this. In 2024, 3.9% of their revenue was interest expense, the interest they pay on their debt. Last year, 2.5%, so they added a lot of debt. Net income is 13.3% of their revenue. That's their net profit margin. Last year, 13.6%, so it went down. Let's go back to the full income statement. This shows shares outstanding. Net income, $500 million. This is for 2024. Divided by 138 million shares outstanding. So their EPS is 371. Last year, 404 million net income divided by 137 million shares outstanding. EPS 294. So their shares outstanding went up, but their EPS went up a lot, because net income went up about 26%. It went up from last year, because last year was 400 million. 25% of 400 million is 100 million. And this went up 111 million. So I know it's more than 25%. I just guessed 26%. Maybe it's 27. Let's look at the balance sheet. This is as of 10/31/2024. Current assets, $2.1 billion. Current liabilities, $700 million. A really high current ratio, almost a 3. Only $160 million of cash. They have a lot of inventory, $1.2 billion. Here's a breakdown of the inventory. Finished products, $680 million. Finished products is the last step. That's when they could sell it. Raw materials, the first step, $400 million. Work in process is the middle step, $100 million. Manufacturing companies report inventory in these 3 steps. Total assets, $7.6 billion, up from $7.2 billion. Goodwill is their biggest asset, $3.3 billion. Intangibles, $1.3 billion. So about $4.7 billion of intangible assets. Goodwill is an intangible asset. So this implies they do a lot of acquisitions. Total liabilities, $3.5 billion. Their biggest liability is long-term debt, $2.2 billion. Here's a breakdown of the long-term debt. $1 billion under a credit facility, $600 million from 2028 senior notes, $600 million from 2033 senior notes. If you want to know the percent interest they pay, you can probably scroll down. The credit facility is 6.3 to 6.7%. It's a bit high. The senior notes are around 5.25% or 5.35%. The 2033 notes are 5.5%. Assets minus liabilities equals equity, $3.7 billion of equity. They raised $600 million from selling the business. They profited $3 billion from running their business. Let's look at a statement of cash flows. The first section is operating cash flow. And in 2024, their operating cash flow was $670 million. The last 2 years, it was around $450 million. So it's up a lot this year. And the reason it's up is because their net income is up. In the investing section, they spent $219 million on acquisitions. Last year, $2.4 billion on acquisitions. In 2023, the company acquired Wencor, and that acquisition was a little over $2 billion. They used $1.9 billion of cash. They received $30 million of cash when they acquired that company. That was in their bank account. So the net cash they paid was a little under $1.9 billion. And they issued $161 million of stock. So the acquisition was mainly cash and also some stock dilution. In 2024, they spent $58 million of CapEx. Last year, $49 million. Before that, $32 million. A lot happening in the financing section. They paid down $365 million on their credit facility. They added $130 million on their credit facility. $29 million of cash dividends. They paid down $14 million on short-term debt. Let's look at a company on Simply Wall Street. Its last price, $239, $29 billion market cap. Down 7% in the past week, up 33% in the past year. The stock has been trading a long time, since 1990. It started out at 27 cents a share. This is stock split adjusted. It wasn't this low ever. It probably started out at like $20. But with all the stock splits, it appears this low. It is hard to tell on this chart how much the stock has moved the first 15, 20 years. But even though it was $5 in 2006, from 24 cents, that's like a 20x return. It ran up to 144 in 2019. And then the COVID crash down to 67. And then it ran up from 67 to 280. Then it grew 300% from 70 to 280. So it peaked at 280 last month. It's down to 237 currently, so it could be a good time to pick it up. Simply Wall Street's at 271. They say the stock is 12% undervalued. 15 analysts priced this stock at 270, pretty similar to Simply Wall Street. They pay their next dividend on January 16th. The ex-dividend date is January 2nd. In 2014, their dividend yield was 0.8%, which was pretty low, but it got much lower, down to 0.3%. Lately, it's been under 0.1%. And the forecast for 2027 is 0.1%. When the yield was 0.8%, then came down, they didn't decrease their dividend. Their stock price came up a lot, so their yield came down. They've actually been increasing their dividend historically. They pay a semi-annual dividend. It was 3.5 cents in 2014. Now it's 11 cents. The CEO's salary was $1 million in 2018. Now it's $1.3 million. Total compensation, $15 million. Tenure as CEO, 35 years. I like when CEOs are at companies this long. It makes me feel comfortable investing in them. In the past year, lots of insider buying, some selling. 82% of the companies owned by institutions, 14% by insiders, and 3.5% by the general public. Vanguard is the biggest shareholder at 8.5%. The CEO under 3%. Invesco 1%, UBS 0.86%, Berkshire Hathaway 0.75%. Once again, he thought he was buying Geico, instead he bought Heico. It's obviously a joke. Geico is a private company that's 100% owned by Berkshire Hathaway. It's not a publicly traded entity. Although if you buy Berkshire Hathaway, part of their revenue and profits are from Geico, but you cannot buy Geico directly. If you want to invest in Coca-Cola, you can buy Coca-Cola. You can also buy Berkshire Hathaway because Berkshire Hathaway owns 10% of Coca-Cola. It's an indirect way of investing in Coca-Cola. You could also invest in the S&P 500. They also own Coca-Cola. The employee count was 3,500 in 2014. Now it's 10,000. And the ticker trades on the New York Stock Exchange, Deutsche Börse, London Stock Exchange, and Sao Paulo Bolsa. If you want to get a copy of my discounted cash flow model, click on the video in the top right corner. Thanks for watching.